Okay, well, Alyssa, come on up. And while people are coming in, we'll listen. Wherever you'd like to. Ricardo? Thank you very much. Ricardo. It's been playing for 45 minutes.
Okay, I did my homework. All right, number 1. Sisters, a short visit, good vibes. Number 2 is my name, Melissa. May everyone live in selfless service always. And the third one was a haiku that I actually wrote in high school that just always stuck to my brain, and here it is. Enchanted snowflakes fall like angels from heaven with their wings spread full.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Who else? Who else has written on the?
Use the microphone. Use the
Who?
microphone.
Come on up.
Lift the microphone.
Who else has some? Didn't you write something? Didn't you have something? Come on up. We'd love it.
We don't have
Come on.
any other writers?
Well, they haven't shown up yet, but they're here. Yeah. And tell us your name. Ginny.
Okay after that. I didn't expect to come up like this, and I saw the 3, I have written something in all 3 of those, but 2 of them were my choice and my plays, and this is my haiku, which was written with someone else in France that I was communicating with on Zoom, back and forth. I was not feeling well, and I felt closer to her than anybody else in the world that I knew. So I wrote her a haiku, and then I am the call, she is the response.
Wow.
So this is called Call and Response. The new day, lying quietly on my futon, Toby, my dog, here too. Spin event, so rare, first time in pandemic, it's a new feeling. Now, response. Running in the door, leaving darkness behind, my evening begins. Opening my phone, here's Ginny writing haiku. Life fragments shared. Treasure, and then me again, treasure of my friend, driving in the coming night, joining my haiku. Fast asleep, woken. Seems I'm feeling better. Coffee and Anna too. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. When you come up here, you can take your mask off. I could hear you, Ginny, very well, but you're welcome to take your mask off when you're reading. Valerie? Didn't you write something? I never saw anybody's face get red as fast. No, come on. Welcome. Valerie is Michael's wife, and we only just met Michael, and this is part of my, because we've been Zooming, but today we got to meet his bride.
We are almost newlyweds. 10 years. I love it. 11 years. 11 years. I'm a homework person, so I did all 3, but I'll choose 2. The 2, 5, 2, 4, 2. Summer, seaside solace, happy. And my name is Val, or Valerie. The short version is valorous and loyal. And my haiku, sunshine hits my face, laughter bursts forth from my lips, Oh, what joy and peace.
Very nice. Who else? Some of you were squirming as if you, see, I was a teacher for 17 years. Some of you were squirming as if you have them, but you don't want to, jump in. Yeah, anybody? All right, come on up. Yay, Claire. Oh, thank you, yes, that's
Yes,
true. You're
Yeah,
never
and
not a
pretty
teacher.
powerful, potent, and loving one, too. Teacher you be.
Come around behind.
Sue and I had several conversations about this, and so I decided that I could be a shill in the audience if need be. And then I got, so this poem is somehow perfect. I'd rather be reading, I'd rather be Zooming, I'd rather be singing, I'd rather be crooning. I meet my goals at the 19th hour, which I just did here. Without a deadline, the poems wouldn't flower. From seeds to buds to blossoms unique, I need more than twilight for one poem a week. And goals did do it. They helped me get here to this afternoon with the poems like a mirror. And now they are finished and I'm almost done until tomorrow. And then I just hope it'll be fun.
Thank you. Carolyn? No? Niente? No, nothing? All right. Anybody else? Well, I think we can start the program. We are waiting for one more writer who will slither in quietly, but we'll get started. She's near the end of the program. So, good afternoon. I'm Sue Summer, the coach and facilitator of the Unity Writers. This group has met almost every week for four years. During COVID, we moved from the bridal room, which was very cozy, and to the Zoom theater. We've written stories and poems in different genres, as you'll find out, shared the details and journeys of our lives, especially in these last 2 years, actually, the 20 months. Others have been part of the group, and they've come and gone and come back in some cases, and we have welcomed them, as we do any of you who would like to join us to create your own stories. The Writer Fest is a fun and challenging project for us. It's the first time we've done anything like this. But remember, writers are solitary. Writing is a solitary process, and writers aren't usually performers. Usually. There are exceptions. That said, we're thrilled to present our work to you. We'll start with Melanie. Melanie, first of all, thank you for the cakes. She was responsible. With cake and coffee, we're just going to be really ready to do this. Melanie is full of surprises. She's been here the longest and my assistant in the Writer Fest. She's also our chaplain, so she'll pray us in now and then begin the program with her opening poem.
Thank you. We usually open our class with a prayer, so I'd like to quickly say a little prayer. If you would like to close your eyes and take a breath and go to your heart. We are so grateful, Spirit, for this opportunity to share our lovely creations with this lovely audience. We're grateful for this class that has kept us going through COVID, given us some meaning to our lives, and to be here today with you all. So bless you all, bless the writers in us all. Amen. Amen. This is called As the Crow Flies. Swooping over my head, the crows got my attention with their raspy calls and dipping flight. I teeter on my growing edge, arms flailing behind. to keep my balance. I am propelled by intention and prayer to fulfill my dreams. Always before, I was told, go back, do this, you're not ready. Always before, I believed them when I could see the way and it was close, as the crow flies. Now I follow the crows. Now, straight for my dreams. Now I am the crow.
I dreamed last night that Bruce Springsteen was in this audience. I don't even know why. Speaking of dreams, I don't know why. I'm not even a particular, I mean, I like his music, but I don't have any of his albums, but there he was, so look around. Michael Tiemann joined online during COVID. As I say, we'd never even met him until Thursday's dress rehearsal. But we knew him from the first day for his authenticity, his enthusiasm for the craft, and his willingness to jump in and try anything. Michael.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to dedicate. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to dedicate this short story to Lisa, without whom I would not be here. I went out for my morning walk one morning, and I met a young lady who lived in the same neighborhood as I did, out walking her rabbit. And I thought, well, this is an Alice in Wonderland moment. And we got to talking, and she said, well, you like to write. And she mentioned this group. So without her direction, it was such a serendipity. And she wasn't able to make it, and I want to dedicate this to her. She's a wonderful young lady, and I want to thank her. This is called Aliens in Myrtle Beach. I am somewhat channeling Calvin and Hobbes, just a little bit. As a child, I had a very vivid imagination. Many years ago, after doing my chores, I had gone for a walk with my sweet dog, Gopher. It was such a beautiful summer evening in South Carolina, and the sound of the ocean waves from the boardwalk of Myrtle Beach made it perfect with a light, cool breeze. As I walked, talking to my ever-curious dachshund, I noticed something in the huge myrtle tree in the park off to my right. Our namesake tree seemed to be encumbered with some strange object. "A UFO, Gopher! Finally, in our own neighborhood!" I exclaimed. Gopher simply tipped his head to the left and then to the right, seemingly asking for more details. I was ready to offer more. "Come on, Gopher, let's go see if they're friendly." Gopher acceded quickly. It was an adventure, and there it was, a pickup truck hanging from the mighty myrtle by its winch, like a Christmas tree ornament gently twisting in the wind. Well, I wondered, I didn't know that aliens could drive here from outer space, especially since they were driving a 1946 Ford. Its classic duckbill nose pointed sadly at the ground, looking like it was crying, stuck in a trap, captured on entry. A fish too big to throw back, yet completely inedible. It was then that I heard the sirens. "Oh no," I yelled to the aliens, "run for it, cheese it, the cops." I knew they would torture the baby aliens and do horrid experiments on them, harvesting their weird organs. I knew they were babies. How did I know? Because only a baby alien would get stuck in a tree. I expected to see their beady little glowing red eyes looking out, begging for help. Surely they were hanging upside down in their seatbelts. Any alien in his right mind would fasten his seatbelt for the long journey through space, wouldn't he? I assured myself. I knew I had to do something quickly. The sirens were getting closer, and then it struck me. I must climb the tree and save the aliens. I'd seen E.T. I could hide them. I could protect them. I could outsmart the officers and men in black. I was my own hero. Gopher looked at me anxiously. "We can do this," I heard him say, though it sounded like a bark. One becomes attuned to these things. Maybe the aliens spoke dog and Gopher was calling them. I waited for a moment, but the truck was silent. I knew that Gopher wanted to climb the tree with me, but I warned him off. This is big boy stuff, Gopher. You stand guard. I was up the tree in a moment, but the truck was empty. They've escaped, I shouted to Gopher, and he shouted back, be careful, my captain. I nodded humbly. That's when the police rolled up, and I froze. Hey, Bill, those damn kids are at it again. I'm getting really tired of their practical jokes. That's when I slipped and fell to the ground with a thud. I couldn't run and leave Gopher to the hostiles. They had him by the leash. I knew he'd crack under pressure. One day, without kibbles and bits, he'd squeal like a chew toy. I stood tentatively and brushed myself off while the police looked on. Hey, Mike, what are you doing? The cop looked me up and down. I was just curious, that's all, I spoke. Well, it's not safe, so take your dog and go home. I grabbed Gopher and off we went. We spent weeks looking for those little aliens, but we never found them. I'm just glad that they got away. None of my friends in second grade believed me, and my mom just laughed.
Charzelle needs little introduction. She's here each Sunday at the Flower and Hospitality sign-up table and creates magic with Christmas transformation of the sanctuary and many other occasions. She writes with vivid boldness and pure ingenuity of description and images. Welcome guest writer Charzelle.
Thank you. I love to get obsessed about subjects and to do tons of research on whatever it is. Once when I was researching goddesses, I ran across a goddess that I'd never heard of, but her name was so familiar that I kept reading and reading. I found references to her in pre-agriculture. She was eventually adopted into the Greek pantheon, and Homer tells us she was the one who made Demeter laugh and brought back spring. Her name's Iambe, like iambic pentameter. And this is my version of part of her story. Long ago, in the far-off time forgot, when man wandered with the beasts through forests Arcadian, eating berries, nibbling on an acorn, Pan trilled his provocative flute, and in ravished echo decided he was cute. And so it was at the Tree of Life one morn, a delightfully gifted goddess was born. Mom's gift was every word ever spoken, and her witty, lusty nature was Daddy's token. Beautiful, happy, and smart, full grown she danced into her part, the goddess of poetry and laughter, and libidinous happy ever after, batted her eyes and began her soliloquy. Hello, world, I am bae. Word went out all over the wood. The new goddess is good. Everyone's invited. The frolic is on. Come one, come all to Iambe's cotillion. Well, there must have been 1 million who arrived at Iambe's cotillion. There were sirens and satyrs, whole pantheons of merrymakers. And when Iambe's hips started to quiver, every god began to shiver. Zeus and Mars said, wow. And Juno and Venus said, how? Then the goddess of giggle really showed off her wiggle, laughed and flicked up her skirt, and the whole world learned to flirt. And with a saucy little curse, she taught them how to verse. Oh yes, there must have been a million at Amby's cotillion. Thank you.
My story is an excerpt from a piece I'm writing about having grown up in Los Angeles. You'll probably learn something about me that may or may not surprise you. Point your toes, girls, feet together at an angle, stand side by side. Put your hands on your hips this time, okay? Ready? Smile, Patty. Flash, clip, click, pop out the hot blue bulb. We posed, my sister and I, feet together. No serendipitous snapshots, no unplanned, caught in the moment documentaries. Not us. We postured as we had been told to do so in nearly every photo my mother took of us. Mom wasn't particularly artsy, and in the early 50s, film and those flashbulbs were expensive, as was the processing. So she was careful to get the photos just right. This time we stood modeling our new Easter outfits. Identical, even though we are 2 years apart in age. Crisp new dresses, white gloves, straw hats, navy pinstriped spring coats, our shiny patent leather Mary Janes, toes pointed. Our maternal grandmother in Chicago would ship large gift-stuffed boxes to us 3 or 4 times a year. They were filled with several major gifts like dolls or clothing, and also many trinkets and treasures Grandma would find on her neighborhood forays around Halsted Street. I remember charms, little beaded purses, bedside lamps, which I actually still have in my bedroom, colorful hair barrettes, cowgirl outfits of red vests, skirts, and matching hats, Reed's lollipops with their famous loop handles, root beer and cinnamon. Trading cards of flowers, girls in traditional international costumes, birds, cards. Comb, brush, and mirror sets, always 2 of everything. How we loved when those treasure boxes arrived. In June, the magical box was delivered in time for my 6th birthday. Inside, among other prizes, were white posy printed frocks edged in minuscule lavender rickrack. 2 weeks later, Patty and I dressed in them and donned our Easter hats, debuting the special dresses as little guests at our first wedding. Point your toes and put your feet together, Susie. Feet can look so awkward in a photo, Mom reminded us as we posed, ready to depart at our front door. Patty, move next to your sister. Both of you now, hold still. We stood in our ironed piqué dresses, the waffle fabric embedded with tiny flower clusters of butter yellow, pink, and cornflower, pointed our toes, set our feet at an angle, and waited for Mom to snap history. Later that day, at the sun-filled reception, the ceremony was complete. The adults were relaxed, cocktails in hand, enjoying the festivity at the tables set around the centerpiece of the backyard, a lovely fountained fish pond. As can happen with well-behaved children, after a wedding, the young ones got comfortable. Boys' jackets were off and ties lapsed askew. Shirt tails hung outside waistbands, girls' socks scrunched down around their heels. So it was then that we children seized upon the merry mood and took some behavioral liberties. As for me, decorum left as I ran with the disheveled little boys, racing around the blue-tiled rim of the fountain, my straw hat hanging by an elastic strap and flying behind me, a tomboy in starch. My parents watched, comfortable in their cluster of friends. Mom had cautioned me of the dangers, but my inner adventurer demanded just one more go-around. I rounded the first curve when my Mary Janes failed my foot grip. Of course, I fell in, starch and all. As I lurched toward the water, what I remember most was not worrying about getting injured or scolded, but hoping above all that I wouldn't hurt the fish when I landed in their domain. It's a good thing Mom didn't have her camera to nab the photo. I'd never have lived it down. Besides, my feet were not together, and my toes most certainly were not pointed. Now, y'all know Doris Oday Eisenhower as the manager extraordinaire of the office here. But she also loves, But she also loves to write, to act, to create jewelry and things and more. And we're happy to have her in our workshop. Dory?
Nice to see you all here in a different role I am right now. This piece is based off a writing prompt that Sue gave us in class, so I wrote this in class. I believe the writing prompt was a place you wanted to go to as a kid. In my case, it's a place that I actually went to and want to go back. This is called The Benevolent Shudder. When I was young, very young, I could stare at the night sky until the most wonderful, indescribable, exhilarating, and peaceful shudder overtook me. I say shudder because that's the closest word I can think of, but I guess shudder has a connotation of fear. There was no fear. It was a fearless and a highly anticipated overwhelm that overtook me. The feeling highlighted an exalted state to every fiber of my being, body, mind, and soul. I would purposefully stare at the stars, patiently waiting for the sensory visitation in great faith for it to arise. And it was the most glorious feeling I've ever had in my entire life. As I grew older, I lost the ability, time, and patience to call upon the wondrous shudder, but I've never forgotten it. I think of it now as God's calling card, the vibrations of the loving waves of the universe that humanity has never learned to measure. So, as a youngster, I wanted to go to the stars because I thought that for sure, the closer I was to the stars, the more I'd feel the benevolent shudder. As the years have grown, I've decided I was able to connect more readily as a wee one because the shudder was of divine origin, and I was only 3 or 4 birth years away from it. I carry that vibratory memory in my heart, knowing that as years increase in my lifetime, I'll get closer to that shudder again, taking off to the stars when the time is right, off to the heavens. At all events, I want to return to the shudder and my childhood connection, which might reflect a permanent state of a life well lived.
To tell us about his special name songs is Ricardo Moncrief, an enigma. His stories and poems weave through the asthenosphere with way-out words and references that both baffle and beguile, then float right back to the point he's making. Just watch. Ricardo.
Hello, everybody. When Mike came up to the microphone and talked about dedications, I'm a vet, and I think I'm going to dedicate, give me an idea that I should be dedicating vets who have experienced PTSD and survived through it. You know, they deserve some accolades from everybody because it's a tragic situation to be in a war. In 1970, let me just say this. In 1971, it started an odyssey in Vietnam, and it ended up in this wonderful class that we have here, this writing class, and it was a huge opening for your heart to express itself and for your mind to express itself. In 1971, I left Vietnam with PTSD and something unusual. It was a talent for creating unusual, funny, odd names that I later named as name songs, with which, in mirth, I started naming my fellow troops these different names. It was a war zone comic relief, but the beginning of an infotainment odyssey, which over the next 54 years, things stick with you. Name songs and a multitude of special features. I now have over 35,000, not 35,000. I'm gonna get this right. Yeah, 3,500 name songs and a multitude of special features. The objective is to expand the horizons of art and interconnect the arts with health, wellness, self-worth, or self-esteem. It's building tools and ideas and activities. Hence, our artist health mantra, arts are everywhere. All you have to do is just look around. Health is everything. And the fact that arts are accessible to everybody, age doesn't count. It includes everything from quilting for seniors, to reviving recipes, you fool around with certain stuff. Our objective is to make it an art form and take ownership of it. The universe of Madam Flood Puppy is definitely an outside-the-box odyssey that focuses on a huge reservoir of name songs. Madam's special kiss, KISS, is knowledge infotainment sweet spots. It is reminders and messages. And today with the COVID thing, we have to be really alert. Madam's chronicle of prosody, I don't know if that's a new word or not, but it's like if you don't know whether it's poetry, verse, stream of consciousness, or this utterance, or just mumbling, yeah, or tiny tales, or what I call definitions or sayings. But the important thing is that I encourage all artists to take ownership whatever they create, whether it's images or figures. Then there are performance arts, music, songs, dance, theater, culinary arts like Madam's Boy and Girls Gumbo. We throw together something and call it your own, and it's an art form. Reduced sugar, sweet potato pie, and visual and fine arts used for messaging. Even turning athletic skills and routines into a form of art, diving, aerobics, and dancing, sculpturing one's body, and what I used to say is even the jump shot, when I demonstrate, jump shot, it has form and it has grace. Why not call it an art form? Mm-hmm. The point is, art and health. Art is health is something that we all can realize if we take ownership of our arts and attach the health issues to it. To give you just one example of a name song, Senorita Dustyfoot, her thing is around dancing. And her messages there are more than 26 health attributes, tied to dancing. Everything from flexibility to balance to clear thinking and whatnot. Prince Zombie Waffle, he talks about, the calories in thick waffles and the calories in thin waffles if you want managing your weight. And Mortimer Del Specie talks about, depression light, how you can exercise and do different things to ward off the impact of depression or mood changes and things like that. And it goes on and on. So what I'm saying is there's like over 3,000 of these messages. Just really hunting for a publisher, That goes on. But at last, one of my favorites is when Flood Puppy meets Shakespeare and JFK. And it goes, when in sessions of sweet silent thought, I summon up remembrances of things past, and beseech thee for those treats I really sought, like a BLT passing my hungry. Ask not what your appetite can do for you, but what you can do for your appetite.
It had to be a blessing to be in the same troupe as Ricardo in Vietnam, because he tells stories, so many stories of it, and the guys would come up to him in the morning and say, "Who am I today?" And he'd come up with these wild names, and they'd chuckle and go about their day. So it had to soften a hideous mood that was pervasive. So they were fortunate to have him, and we certainly are too. Making her grand entrance is the newest member of our group, and really, Marika, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, has been here, and so let me introduce her. Marika Payas Wiener, as a teacher and writer and mom, still has kids living at home, brings a different perspective to our prompts and works. We're happy she's joined us. She'll read 2 poems that she's created. So Marika?
So the first poem I'm going to read today is entitled Landlord. The birds were red. Well, they had red heads. Well, one of them did. The other was more like brown with a reddish belly. They seemed to arrive together, perching on the power line outside my kitchen window. Their chirruping gush called to me out onto my deck, away from the dullness of my dish duty. They perched a moment before the red-headed one darted away up under the eaves of our paint-peeling pool house. Practicing curiosity, and maybe just a shade of nosiness, I followed it and looked up, surprised to see an elegant cone of dried grass mixed with the odd plastic coffee stirrer poking out of the dusty gutter. We don't always choose the names thrust upon us. I headed back inside my house, leaving the surprise squatters to their final fabrications. Well, of course, they need protection from this ridiculous wind, and now, too, a ridiculous shard of pride lodging itself somewhere near my heart. This one is entitled Responsibility. Every time I get into my van and start the ignition, the operating system conveys an elaborate warning, requiring me to assent to the understanding that I alone am responsible for everything. For operating the vehicle safely, for not killing myself, my kids, the neighbor's dog. I'm responsible for the case of Gatorade that slides over the granola bar wrappers in the trunk when I take a right turn too sharply, the snacks not eaten, the dinner, and the cleanup. I'm responsible for the bruises, the scrapes, the holy hecks, and worse than that my kids yelp out at the most inopportune moments. I'm responsible for that one time, it may have been 2, that I completely lost it, pulling over to the side of the road, making both kids get out and sit on the hot sidewalk while I paced hard to cool off. I'm responsible for the plants that never got watered, the coffee pot that got left on too long, and the tide of dishes that will never stop piling up in the sink. I must also be responsible for the sun shining too brightly in that man's eyes, and the sliver of moon that's surreptitiously sleeping it off in the mid-morning sky.
If I'm being totally honest, I'm also probably responsible for noise pollution, light pollution, and almost definitely contributing as much to the problem as to the solution. I'm responsible for the smell that's emanating from the trash can that I'm hoping we might just be able to squeeze one more meal's worth of packaging into. Oh, I'm responsible for that big floating pile of plastic in the sea, too. If I want to leave my driveway today, any day, I have to acknowledge that the driver of this vehicle assumes responsibility. The day's report won't tender excuses. So I tap OK and put it in drive.
It's been so wonderful to get to know these people and to be in such an atmosphere of trust. Sue says at the beginning of every class or when anyone new comes in that everything that happens here stays here. We don't talk outside of class. And we have come to have a deepening experience of each other. So I have been very grateful to be able to share my stories and get to know my classmates so deeply.
And their quirks.
Ricardo graced me with a name song.
Melanie,
And-
hold on 1 second.
Beg your pardon?
We've got the jazz man left his radio on. He's phone.
He used to be in the class. It's Eleanor.
It's who?
Eleanor.
Oh,
My apologies, I thought I had cut it off.
it's the love of his life. All right.
So after he gets to know you pretty well, he'll maybe give you a name song.
Yeah?
Mine is Touchstone Mama. This story is entitled Someone Following Me. It's a memoir, and it's fun to write memories. A Girl Scout meeting after school has me leaving later than usual, but I'm not alone on the 5-block walk home. Curtis Huffman and his friend Waldemar Schubert are just getting out of band practice. Waldemar, a German student, is the tallest boy in my class.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to work with that.
At least it's a good song, right? Good music.
Curtis, a hefty redhead, plays tuba in our school band. Both of them are larger than I. I don't know them except at school. They see me and head toward me. We're walking this way. We'll walk you home, I hear Curtis say. I nod, not looking directly at them. I walk on, but they don't catch up with me. I glance back. I can hear them disagreeing about something as they match my pace about 20 feet behind. I don't like them following me and arguing. I quicken my step and look for an out. No friendly neighbors along this route. I would have to cut across a big yard to access a front door. The boys would see me take that turn. Better to continue nonchalantly rather than letting them know I'm apprehensive. I've never seen them walk this way before. Usually my sister is with me, a third grader, a lot of good she would do. Then I hear what they're saying. I saw her first, Waldemar says. Well, I'm in her class, says Curtis. She looked directly at me today and smiled, says Waldemar. She talks with me every day in class, Curtis says. This is getting dangerous, I say to myself. What are they up to? I'm embarrassed and shy and a little frightened. We reach the alley where I usually turn, but I go on the half block to my street. I don't want to be behind the houses with them. I always thought they were nice boys. The bickering continues, and now they are coming closer. I have just about had enough. When we reach my street corner just a block from my home, I turn to them and say, "Well, my house is just up there. You can go home now." They look at each other, and Curtis says, "I want to walk you all the way there." Valdemar nods, looking at Curtis somewhat defiantly. "Okay," I say, and walk on quietly. They move to either side of me, and we march up the sidewalk to my house, and then they escort me up the stairs. I turn to them and look. They're both perspiring and a bit red in the face. Feeling safer, I say, "Would you like a glass of water before you go home?" They are going home. Yes, they're both thirsty. I invite them to sit on the swing and wait while I go in the house to get the water. They take possession of the swing. In the kitchen, I prepare a tray of 3 waters and tell my mother about this strange experience. "Would you like me to meet them?" she asks me. I nod yes vigorously. "You take the water. I'll be out in a minute." I head back to my guests. My mother comes out with some cookies and a pitcher of milk. I make the introductions. "You have a sister, Ursula," she says to Valdemar. "We met at the school picnic. And Curtis, I know your mother from church. How nice of you both to walk Melanie home." "Thank you, Mother," I say to myself. "Some boys used to walk me home and fight over me," she muses. "They were trying to find out which one of them I liked. I told them they would have to cut me down the middle so that they could each have half." We all laughed uproariously over that impossible solution to her dilemma. They eat the cookies and drink the milk and leave amicably. They seem friendly toward each other the next day at school. And Curtis walks me home for the rest of the year.
Blank verse is one of the most common poetic forms. It's closest to natural speech. Robert Frost employed it in The Mending Wall. Milton used it in Paradise Lost. Shakespeare employed it a lot as well. It doesn't rhyme, and the sentence lengths may vary, but it's not without structure. Each line contains exactly 10 syllables, but you won't be able to tell that. This makes the poet work precisely makes the poet work hard to find precisely the correct word, which I had a lot of trouble just doing. Michael and I will share 2 examples from the class fun work lesson. Michael?
This poem is called Broken Light. Light's shaft, breaking through clouds over open fields and leaves of trees, shading dappled rocks scintillating. Life between the cradle and the grave I see, a message speaking codex primal truth, sacred stone, riverbed, ancient trees. The birds announce my part in the script. I forget my lines in wonder, stunned to silence, a transported soul in blessed solitude. Among so many priceless souls, freedom of the invisible made visible. What are you saying through filtered forest that rings so true, touching my heart? Is it just a dream? Do I awaken one with everything I love that I can only admire from a distance now? Dancing shadows surround me. The light that pierces does not reflect. Only what is meant to be seen is seen. You end up with more questions than answers. Beauty of mystery lifts me to nebulae. I feel everything.
Unity's principles are somewhat based on practical Christianity and on, of course, Tim's talk this morning, Reverend Tim's talk this morning. This is the kind of practical side of it. It's called All on a Summer's Day. I leave my driveway, open the sunroof, surveying the colors planted in my front garden. Purple mum, rust red maple, a gardenia in fragrant, stark white bloom. Contented, I sway onto the freeway, the sun pouring gloriously over the mountain to the west and the small hill to the east near the harbor, coastal palms arching toward the water. Halyard lines on the boats clang gentle music in the warmth of a summer day. A vacation dalliance, a short drive to a nearby town. A peaceful journey. I am content. Except that as I edge toward the off-ramp, a darkness looms over my driver's side. A huge truck hides the sun, its wheels more than half the height of my car. The ramp clogs like damp sand in an hourglass. Cars line up to exit. The traffic light changes again and yet again. Stop. Go. Patience, I calmly repeat the mantra I use in situations such as these. I choose peace instead of this. And it works. Until a large car stops right lane traffic on the freeway. The guy has flown along with speedy traffic till the last minute, then has shoved his self-centered, greedy way onto the off-ramp, cheating those of us who, swearing by now, I'm sure, have waited through 4 red-green lights. Steam forms in my brain. Then a pickup repeats the dastardly crime, and yet still another gigantic family car goads its selfish way in. Frustration and fury, and my mantra changes quite dramatically as I roll down the window, and at this juncture I shout, "Wait your turn with the rest of us, jackass!" Peace is wonderful. There is not a question. But occasionally, a good shout at the appropriate time just works wonders.
How do you follow that? This is an excerpt from a larger piece that I'm working on. On November 5th of 1996, I was called to the hospital with my 3 siblings. The nurses had told us that my mother would probably not make it through the night, and would we all like to be there? So of course we did. And we were there when she took her last breath. I had visited her in days before, and she was calling out for her own mother. After she took her last breath, this is my imagining of what happened to her and where she went. This is from her perspective. I felt ebullient and joyous, and my mother and I rejoined the swarm of energy you feel in the wind or see in the stars. My sisters and brothers, who I had known on earth, were melting together here, and I could see other divine, newly splintered drops of energy in the waiting room. They were preparing to incarnate and asked if my time in the realm had been wondrous. I nodded, winked, and swirled away, recalling my own time in the waiting room. It had sharpened my sense of human humor and introduced me in the most gentle fashion possible to the bureaucracy of human beings, which sometimes frustrated the process of being human. Still, I had enjoyed the process of the waiting room and remembered my time hanging out there planning. It was called the waiting room in an attempt to transition drops of the universe like me, soon to be referred to as humans or earthlings, as they incarnated. First off, each drop was told to take a number and fill out 938 pages of form in triplicate with black ink only. Some sort of note on the form mentioned that faxes and emails would be acceptable submissions as long as receipts were kept for each page and presented at the appropriate window. Forms filled out with Helvetica font would be expedited, while forms in blue ink would be rejected entirely. Again, in the anthropomorphic process, this initial step in the waiting room was meant to instill some familiarity with what kind of earthly process and reasoning lay in front of each drop. Certain drops were absolved of all paperwork requirements in agreement to land on Earth as a dog. These dogs would agree to A, limit their time on Earth, B, only take the food offered to them no matter how often they begged for any and all fare, and C, to love unconditionally while napping frequently. Under certain abbreviated drop conditions, the nap time would be increased and the willingness to accept all food offered was reduced if, and only if, the drops agreed to incarnate as a cat. Cats were still required to limit earthly time, but the upgraded nap time and refined culinary palate with refusal rights was often worth the trade-off. Also, cats could be pissy and fussy, and it would only make them more lovable, which was a curious but desirable perk. Dog and cat contracts were limited, with a reservation waiting list of up to 10,001 earthly years, and only for a drop that had already incarnated a minimum of 9,857 times. It was a coveted drop contract and totally worth it.
So I believe that one of the existential questions of our time is, how does one make a child go to bed who does not want to go to bed? And this is a vignette of one such moment at our house titled "Stops My Heart." Okay. My 6-year-old mounts her bed in a 2-part process. Her legs are too short for a more traditional method. First, she flops her stomach on with arms splayed up. Then she shimmies her hips and her knees up while hauling herself up by her hands. A free solo mountain climb across the pink and aqua comforter to the head of her bed, if you will. "Mom," she starts when she gets to the top and starts scooching her legs under the covers. "Wouldn't it be sad if you weren't here anymore? Like if you got on the wrong plane and just never came back?" She sniffs for a moment, the thought becoming suddenly real. Then her face crumples completely and she starts to sob softly. "It's so sad, Mommy. I don't want to think about it. But now that I've said it, I can't stop. I can't not think about it." I'm kneeling by her bed and she lifts my arm, plopping my hand on her forehead. Can you please just bang it out of my head?" She plonks my hand on her head harder and harder, and now she's starting to smile a little. "You're really good at that," she giggles. I take my hand back, and she rolls onto her left side toward me, cuddling her kitty cat lovey, Marie. She shuts her eyes tightly and shouts, "Cupcakes! Cotton candy! Christmas!" I grin and lean in. I know this game. Hawaii. Her eyes shoot open and she gasps with glee. "Yes! Oh my gosh, Hawaii! Warm sand and warm goody sun." She's rolling back and forth with glee, in rapture. "And bogey boards." Wait. She stops rolling, brow crinkling. "Are they called bogey boards or surfboards?" She's saying bogey boards, like she's a Top Gun pilot and ready to take down a MiG-28. I begin a response, and she just goes on. "No, bogey boards are the ones I like. Surfboards are the ones I hate. Surfboards are the ones you have to stand up on. The other ones you can just lay on, and it's so fun." Well, I say, pulling up her comforter and tucking it softly around her shoulders. You don't like them now when you're 6. Surfboards aren't for 6s, but maybe when you're 16. 16, she exclaims, sitting up straight in her bed. Wait, Mommy, do that in hundreds, tens, and ones. Like, pretend you have a hundreds row, her arm moves up and down. And a tens, another up and down. And ones, same gesture. Okay, she gets her Alex Trebek game show voice ready. Hundreds. She looks expectantly at me. 0? Right. Tens. She points to me. 1? Yep, good. Ones? 6? Right. Now let's do a harder one. What if I had 10,236? I take a deep breath, and my lips close into that sideways smile that moms use when the hammer is coming down, but it's a soft hammer. It's time to go to sleep. No, please, just do this one. Nope, it's time. We can do some more math tomorrow. She sighs, aggrieved, and nestles in closer to Marie, a faint pout on her face. Fine, but you're mean. I can't help but smile. This little love, so big, so full. I lean in and kiss her goodnight.
For a guy who was raised on computers, I had one of the first Macs out, and I should be spanked for not knowing how to turn off a cell phone, so I apologize to everybody for that.
Do you want to hold the mic instead of talk into it? Do you want to hold it?
Oh, can I do this?
Yeah, just make sure you talk into it.
Okay, Mike, me and you. This next thing is called impeachment. And, thank you, darling. That sounds good to me. It's impeachment by couple of my name songs, Dapper Benny Bam Bam, Wawa Latouche, Incremental Moses, and the Cowabunga Kitty Litterers. And they talk about impeachment. Did Mama impeach her hubby? Yeah. Did the mouse impeach the cat? Yeah. Did the worm impeach the hook? Sure. The clouds impeach the elusive heavens? Could be. Night impeached the bluishness of yonder? Oh. The pyramids impeached the dalliance of the pharaohs? Yeah. Did spirituality impeach soul inflictions? Sure did. Did evolution impeach biostratification? Oh, that's funny. Well, let me think about that. Did the sun impeach the planet Pluto? Damn right. Did time impeach all the quantum particles that didn't have anything to do? Yes. Did orbits impeach gravity? You betcha. Did vaccinations impeach COVID? Let's see. But who, when, why, or what will impeach racism?
Well, we have come to what we call the grand finale. We want to thank all of those who worked to put this Writer Fest on. Dory, Kanek, Reverend Medora, Melanie, Cindy Hall, Reese, and I want to thank the writers for sharing so boldly week to week and for swinging out of their comfort zones, out of your comfort zones, to share what we do on Tuesday mornings. Thank you. I love you all. We're going to ask you, as is done in a symphony, not to applaud after every poem. We're just going to go, until the finale is evident. We will start the grand finale. Michael, there won't be introductions either. We're just going to come up and do it. Okay. No, go to the mic.
A nation scattered with bones, or how the West was won. Freeways over graves, schools of deadly progress where children freely play, where slavery's stinking sweat feeds sweet peas and blue bonnets, skulls of buffalo dissolved to dust with starving Indians, railroads whistle screaming Chinese death, land of the free, sins of the fathers, long shadows on dry deserts and paved cities, forgotten echoes of ghosts longing for justice. There will be a day of reckoning someday.
I have to do this. This is juice. I want you to crave me like juice, like good, cold icebox juice, drunk straight from the jug on a hot, youthful, tree-climbing afternoon. Like elegant, extravagant, luxurious juice, squeezed from voluptuous oranges on a breathtakingly beautiful, bird-singing break of day. Like sweet, cold salvation juice, soothing your dirt road of a throat on a main, dry, hungover mouth morning. I want you to crave me like juice. Juice in tall tumblers, juice the color of Padparadscha sapphires. Juice as fresh and new as childhood. The juice that nourishes you all the rest of your days. I want you to crave me like juice.
Marika, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here.
The bees. The bees are tumbling out of the magnolias today, a delicate deportation. They linger, undeterred, famished, in mesmeric, drunken adagio.
He worked in the butcher section at the A&P, bloody business. 50 yards away, she sold strudel, sticky cookies and cakes. Her favorite? Chocolate devil layers of fudge. Eating enough half-price day-olds to dull only slightly her savage sweet tooth. From her, I inherited the gift of geniality, of making guests comfortable, the aptitude of gab, and of fashioning things, catching her late into the night stitching little girl costumes, pleated white taffeta skirts and red vests, satin striping on the pillbox hats, just hours before our tap dance recital. Of improvising to create and to repair anything, except for the hair I cut off my favorite doll. A wicked craving for sweets, mostly chocolate, in particular, 70% with walnuts. From him, I absorbed a flair for languages and the love of travel. He flew to uncharted Finland in the early 50s, after all. His passion for planting rust-toned chrysanthemums he favored, though I fancied the buttery yellows. His love of artistry and design, and a healthy dose of racism as well, which I refuted early on, carping at him about it until his death at 99. They were quite a pair, my mother, first loving, then simply tolerating him, his flying German temper, offhanded sexist asides, Stand my ground, he'd snip, with 3 women against me in my own house, his eyes twinkling at the joke. She staying for the sake of the children, he being unaware, if not indifferent. They made it work, though, made it fit. And in the last 10 of their 50-plus years together, they were content, easy with the inevitability of each other, if not altogether smitten.
Thanking by Baron Rewind Your Mind, Upside Down Rosie Posey Mary Ruckershane, Ghetto Girl Erectus, Dainty Dana Love Lackey, and Chillbone the Magnificent. Thinking falls into the human species by accident, cavalcades of worry. It takes signals from right brain origins and vessels and veins and protoplasm. They all explore these directions. Where to go, what to do, gotta think. Thinking is an always. Again, thinking is an always. Mislabeled or mute toot, it's random, it's tactical or greasy, it's frolic worthy, it's formless, it's oxymoronic, it can be catty, and like a kiss that grows hair and giggles up hairstyle. Why think? Dreaming is easier, maybe less fun, but screaming to divorce solitude.
Peanut Butter Men, dedicated to my sister Jane. The spherical confectioner's delight, rotund with sugar and peanut butter, produced by my sister's hands and born from a family recipe, tempted my mother's culinary desire for sugar, and then some more sugar. As the platter of spherical peanut butter fudge emerged from the kitchen, she descended upon the pancreatic nemesis with eyes aglow and a contemplative smirk. Before studying the bite-sized globes of sweetness, she paused and impishly announced, "A lot of little peanut butter men lost their lives today." And then she ate the peanut butter balls.
Sorry.
We've known love like that. Tiny black clustered bubbles of tart sweetness burst in my mouth. Purple juices run down my fingers, mix with blood from tiny pricks of tiny needles behind green leaves. Snaky vine grabs and holds my leg, but sweeter ones are just over there.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
And thank you to Sue.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to stand here for Unity in Marin. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Reverend Medora Gordon. I'm the Emeritus Minister here. I know almost all of you, but thank you for this wonderful day. We didn't know what to expect, and Pamela and I were going, wow, they're really good. And wow, you really are good. So thank you again. Thank you, Sue, and I hope that we will see and hear more from all of you. Thank you.
We'd love to do this again. Thank you all for coming. It's been great. You're a great audience. Nobody was nervous. Bruce Springsteen I don't know where he went, but
We did not need him.
we don't need no. Anyway, thank you all. Bless you for coming. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.